I'm Joe Giglio for NJ Sports Now on this Thursday, July the 30th. As the New York Mets get closer and closer to making a big deal at the Major League Baseball trade deadline, last night all hell broke loose and the Mets embarrassed themselves and made a debacle out of a shortstop that has been with their organization since he was 16 years old. Last night during the Mets-Padres game, reports started flying through Twitter saying the Mets and Brewers had agreed in principle to a deal that would send Zach Wheeler, currently recovering from Tommy John surgery, and Wilmer Flores playing at shortstop for the Mets last night in the game to the Milwaukee Brewers for former Met prospect Carlos Gomez. On the surface, a really good and really smart deal for the Mets. Made sense, upgrades their team, a risk worth taking for a team that has a legitimate shot to make it back to October for the first time since 2006. But the fallout from everything here is where the Mets went wrong. And after the game, the Mets blaming social media for what happened on the field is embarrassing. The only people to blame for what happened last night are the Mets. The fact that Flores, a kid that has been with the organization since he was 16 years old, was not removed from the game as discussions progressed. Now, the deal fell apart. It's not happening because of Carlos Gomez's hip issue. That's fine. Deals fall apart all the time. But once the deal got out there, you have to take Flores off the field. Forget for a second his psyche, which looked to be totally damaged as he had tears in his eyes in the 8th inning after fans behind the dugout told him he was just traded. The team didn't tell him. The manager in the dugout didn't know, but the fans behind the dugout are telling this shortstop, who has been with the organization his whole life basically, that he was just traded. And he goes out to shortstop, has tears in his eyes, it becomes viral, it becomes embarrassing. After the game, the Mets, from Terry Collins, the manager, to Sandy Alderson, the GM, talking about how social media took over. Well, someone from the Mets had to leak the story to the good reporters that cover the team, put it on social media, and there you go. Thousands of people retweeting it, the crowd getting into it, and everyone knows by the 5th and 6th inning what is happening here. The fact that it didn't is not the issue. The biggest problem last night was the Mets didn't take Flores off the field, which is standard protocol when this type of thing is going down. If you just put aside the fact that this kid was emotional over what happened and just look at it logically, Flores should have been taken off the field when the Mets and Brewers got into deep discussions about this deal. Why? Because if Wilmer Flores hurt himself last night, that itself would have nixed the deal. Every other team in baseball does this. When a trade is about to go down, or medicals are being discussed, or it's really that close, as the reports were saying it was last night, the players involved are actually on the field for each of the two teams, come off the field. Happens every year around this time, around the trade deadline. You see the hugs, they come off the field, standing ovation, and away you go. And Flores could have had his emotional moment in the dugout with his teammates or in the privacy of the clubhouse. Instead, the lack of communication from upstairs with Sandy Alderson to downstairs with Terry Collins to the players in the field was comical last night. And the saddest part is Flores had to be the one taking the brunt for it. The Mets coming out after the game and referencing social media sounds like your older relative who has no idea exactly what happens on there, but just blames it for the bad things that happen in this world. It was a joke, and the Mets were the reason the joke happened. Not Flores, not a kid getting over emotional, not the fans, not social media, and not the reporters. This one is on the Mets. If they just handle it like every other team, the protocol works, and we never see Flores get emotional on the field. I'm Joe Giglio for NJ Sports.